Welcome to the Dr. Broadway Podcast, the musical theater history podcast where a couple of doctors sit around and talk about Broadway. I'm your co-host, Dr. Kristin Stultz Pressley, joined as always by Dr. Tracey Brent-Chessum. Tracey, we have a very interesting topic of conversation today. Tell the people what it is.
We do. Episode 6 of our Bookish micromester. We'll be talking about Suffs, the musical, which premieres on Broadway in 2024, but has a long history before that. Yeah. It's based on or inspired by the book Jailed for Freedom, American Women Get the Vote by Doris Stevens. So...
yeah, and our focus of conversation is going to be primarily on the writer Shaina Taub, who wrote this show and not only wrote it, but starred in it as well, on both on Broadway and off. But just real quickly to tell you how that book figures into it, because, you know, you often will probably hear this referred to as an original musical because it is not a direct adaptation of Doris Stevens's book. Yeah. But it was nevertheless, that was the inciting incident for bringing this about. Yeah, exactly. So if we're looking at the arc of this story being the development of Suffs, then the moment when things really take off is when a producer named Rachel Sussman contacts Shaina Taub in 2014 and, you know, says, I really think you should read this book. And she hands her Stevens's book, Jailed for Freedom, American Women Get the Vote, as you pointed out. And Taub speed reads it. She reads it like in a day. And as soon as she's done at 3 or 4 in the morning, she sends a very hastily written email and says, I'll write more coherently later, but just suffice it to say, I definitely think we have to do this. And they were off to the races back in 2014. And then, you know, it had a 10-year journey to Broadway. And we'll talk more about both that inciting incident and its 10-year journey in a minute. But first, I'm going to talk about who Shaina Taub is. Yeah,
but so it's very much like Hamilton, where Hamilton is based on...
exactly.
Inspired by, you know, the Hamilton biography by Chernow. So
that's right.
Same kind of thing. So I think you could put them in both categories. Both original...
yeah, absolutely.
And the other. Because the thing is about writing original musicals that are based on historical subjects, you got to read some books to figure out the history.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's just like, ooh, one sparked my interest more than the other. And, you know, all of a sudden...
well, and Taub would say, to your point, you know, she said, my tiny little 1-bedroom apartment is 95% books, because she did so much additional research in order to write this musical, but it was all instigated by that one book by Doris Stevens. So if if you are a Jailed for Freedom by Doris Stevens stan, do not expect this is going to be a word for word adaptation. Just know that the themes, the topics addressed in that book are the themes and topics addressed in Suffs. So, having said all that, let me get to Shaina Taub, who has an unbelievable biography and a rise to fame that can only be called meteoric. She grew up in rural Vermont, and her father was an optometrist and her mother was an elementary school teacher. And from very early on, she is super active in theater. She's taking acting lessons. She's performing in community theater. She is attending tours that come through town. Once a year, she would go see Broadway shows with her grandparents. She remembers her very first one being Beauty and the Beast. But she is very, very deeply involved in the arts, and from a very early age knows this is where she wants to spend her career and her life. At age 9, she starts going to Stage Door Manor, which is about 2 hours northwest of New York City. It's a camp for theater kids, just like her. I mean, it was tailor-made for her. There are many notable...
scary.
Yeah, yes.
Just let's be honest.
Yes. Yes. Hey, it reminds me, wasn't there a movie?
Yes.
Ben Platt Camp? I never saw it. I wanted to see it, but I forgot about it and didn't see it, but I need to. Have you seen it?
It's a lot.
Is it really?
It's just like, oh dear, this is my life, and I'm ashamed that this was my life. That's how I remember it, and being like, No, I can't.
And it's a little close to the bone.
I just can't anymore. Mm-mm.
Yes. Well, this was the kind of camp that Shayna Taub attended. Starting at age 9, she went for 8 summers, so she was a regular. She was there constantly. Back at school in Vermont, she was also an activist. She organized a cabaret for the American Cancer Society. So early on, we see her combining both her love of musical theater and of show music with her ability to get things done, right? And realizing that we can use musical theater as a means to accomplish social change. In so telling of this biography thus far, I am getting major Anais Mitchell vibes. Anais Mitchell, of course, who wrote Hadestown, also from Vermont, also used theater as a means of social change. So the two of them have a lot of overlap.
But I mean, that's a hallmark of Vermont.
Yeah, very true. Very
if you
true.
See the thing behind me, this is bread and puppet theater. And
yeah,
bread
that's
and puppet
right.
theater, that just permeates. That's not a big state. That can
That's
permeate
true.
the whole state. That's what we do in theater there.
That's right. And it occurs to me, we were talking about Vermont in our most recent episode about Sound of Music. So it seems like we've spent a lot of time on Vermont for it to be, to your point, such a small state. It's come up tiny. A lot here recently.
But
That's
it
right.
sounds good, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Somewhere on social media yesterday, there was like a picture of a little free library that was just for coffee mugs. For
so
people
you could turn in your coffee mugs instead of your books?
And swap them out. And this was in Vermont. And I had a friend who was like, we must move here immediately. We need to move here immediately. Because that is the kind of wholesome I need in my life. And I was like, you know what? We could get a compound. It's like, there's lots of farmland.
Yes. It's nice and cool up there. I love it. So she's very active in theater early on. She's one of those people who is so fortunate to not only know what she wants to do from a very early age, but to have the chops to do it, right? She's very skilled, and it's obvious from an early age. It's so obvious, in fact, that she graduates high school early and enrolls at NYU in the Tisch School for the Arts at age 16. I was thinking about that and thinking, man, if I had a child who wanted to enroll, that's what I was thinking, like at 16.
No.
That is just so hard to imagine.
And here I am being like the college professor that says, you know what? I will pay you, daughters of mine, to take a gap year or 2. Mm-hmm. And then, yes, I will pay for gap year or 2. Please. You do not have to do this too quickly.
Don't rush.
I know. You will be a lot less annoying to people around you. Like, this will be good. I could not.
Same.
Even with mine, who are much like my wife, who's the most responsible person who has ever lived. Her dad says she makes unfailingly good decisions. And so he just goes along with whatever she wants. And it's smart. It's very smart. And I have 2 of those. I still could not do that. Yeah. I still would not be like,
I know.
Yeah, sure, go to college at 16. I'd be like,
yeah. Especially in New York.
Yeah, I'm like, maybe you could live at home if you're that smart.
Yes.
No, I'm not letting my 16-year-old go to New York City. No.
I know. It just is the idea is so foreign to me. But she was ready, She was like, let's get this show on the road. She knew what she wanted and she went for it. And she, like I said, she had the chops to back it up. She was able to get accepted at age 16. She said that NYU felt to her like Hogwarts. I mean, for her, it was the
16.
epicenter. That's right.
That's why. She's seeing everything through rose-colored glasses. Oh my.
Yep.
I like this. I like this girl, but
I do too. I love her. I mean, she's got moxie for sure. So she enrolls in the acting program. It is assumed that she will be a performer, but while she's at NYU, a friend of hers encourages her to take an elective class, which she does, and it's in that elective class that she begins to explore her talent as a writer. And that combination of being able to both write and perform ends up being kind of a secret to her success. We're going to see her doing both of those things. I already mentioned how she not only wrote but starred in Suffs. We're going to find out she wrote and performed in an adaptation of William Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. And so this is a hallmark of what she does. She creates roles for herself in her own shows, much like we see Lin-Manuel Miranda do. Again, back to Anais Mitchell. She didn't do it on Broadway, but in those early days of Hadestown, it was Anais Mitchell who was singing front and center, right? So,
and part of that is because neither like Lynn or Shayna Taub, they don't fit what we call like a classic musical theater type. And so they're having to create something that works for them, because typing is a horrible thing that has its uses, but it is, it's hard to get in the room sometimes, but
no doubt. So in 2009, she has written her senior project. It's called The Daughters, and it's about 3 Greek goddesses, the daughters of Zeus, in fact. So Athena, Aphrodite, and Artemis. And this project is well enough received that in 2010, the Yale Institute for Music Theater does a workshop of it. So the Yale Institute for Music Theater is a kind of collaborative process between the Yale School of Music and the Yale School of Drama, and they come together to do workshop productions that will benefit up-and-coming writers like Taub. So that was 2010, the year after she graduates from NYU. Then in 2012, Ars Nova, which is an off-Broadway theater company that produces work by emerging artists, they name her a writer in residence. So she's writing for Ars Nova. In 2013, she is cast by Rachel Chavkin, who, again, another connection to Anais Mitchell by way of Hadestown. She's cast in 2013 in an off-Broadway production of Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812 at the Public Theater. Rachel Chavkin had seen her work by way of The Daughters, her senior project, and had then cast her subsequently in Natasha Pierre at the Public off-Broadway. In 2014, Shayna Taub wins the Jonathan Larson Grant, which, if you're unfamiliar with that, is administered by the American Theater Wing, and it is a sum of money given to, again, emerging theater writers so that they can focus on writing the great American musical, much like Jonathan Larson was attempting to do with Rent. So his family has made these monies available, and they are awarded annually to not just one writer, but to several writers a year will win a grant, and it's administered by the American Theater Wing. And then in 2014, when the same year she wins the Jonathan Larson Grant, that's when she's approached by Sussman about what will eventually become Suffs. I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. I've already alluded to it earlier, but I'll get back to it in a minute. So 2014, then 2016, again, director Rachel Chavkin casts Shayna Taub as a Fate in the off-Broadway premiere of Hadestown at the New York Theater Workshop. And it was also in 2016 that she was asked by the Public Theater to write a musical adaptation of Twelfth Night. And this moment, she's 26 or 7 years old at this point. And she's at a turning point. She's really at a nexus of her career. She has to decide, am I going to focus on performing or am I going to focus on writing, right? She most likely could have stayed with Hadestown through its Broadway premiere and gone on and ridden that wave as long as she could take it. But she also knew if she gave up on her writing, she may not get a chance to do it again. And so she made the choice to step back from, really heavily pursuing performance in order to focus on her writing. And that happens at this moment in time in 2016. She decides, okay, I think I'm going to be a writer who performs, not a performer who writes, if that makes sense. So in 2017, she gets to continue her work writing. She takes up residency at Joe's Pub, which is also part of the Public Theater. And then in 2022, she does another Shakespeare adaptation with a musical adaptation of As You Like It for the Public Theater.
Which I think was pretty good, if I remember.
I don't know anything about it.
I just
except
remember seeing
when it was.
Yeah, I just remember seeing stuff from it.
Yeah. It must have been, I mean, 12th Night must have been received well enough that they invited her to do another one, you know, and kept her on board at Joe's Pub.
This 2016 is a long time ago in my brain.
I don't know how far back it is. Yeah.
2022. I'm like, oh, I remember seeing that. I remember seeing stuff come through about it, and people that were, you know, posting pictures saying that they went to it, they saw it, they loved it, you know.
Well, also in 2022, she co-writes the world premiere of a project she had worked on for a while with Elton John and Paul Rudnick.
Just Elton John.
Right, just Elton John. Exactly. Like, who is this person?
Yeah.
The world premiere of The Devil Wears Prada musical adaptation happens in Chicago in 2022. She co-writes music and lyrics. What's that?
Is it actually coming?
Well, I checked again today to have the latest information, and it is still says it's coming, but dates are TBD. In fact, it lists Beth Lavelle as the Meryl Streep role of Miranda Priestley, which I think would be great. Well, it'll be a totally different take. I love her. Yes. So that will be great. But at any rate, 2022 was a great year for Shana Taub. Devil Wears Prada premieres, as does her musical adaptation of As You Like It, which she writes at the request of the Public Theater. And so, you know, she's covered a lot of territory. I mean, she hits the ground running immediately upon arriving in New York City. And early though it may have been, she immediately has success post-college in New York and kind of has her choice of projects, right? You know, it's either, do you want to go to Broadway with Hadestown, or do you want to write something for the Public Theater? We should all be so lucky, right?
To have to make that choice.
We should all, and at 27 years old or whatever she was, you know, I mean, just enormously gifted woman, and it shows in the level of work that she was offered and that she was able to create. So let me go back to 2014 when that producer Rachel Sussman connects with Taub regarding the book that we mentioned, Doris Stevens, Jailed for Freedom. So Rachel Sussman herself remembers learning about the 20th, is it the 20th Amendment? 19th Amendment. 1920, which one?
I think it's the 19th.
19th Amendment in 1920.
Now,
I don't want to get it wrong.
Now I'll look it up. Hold on.
I think that it was voted in, I think that it became the law in 1920, but took effect, 1919, and then took effect in 1920. And I think I can't remember if it's the 19th or 20th Amendment. At any rate, I'm proving her point. Rachel Sussman is who I'm talking about here. 19th Amendment, 1920.
Passed in 1919, ratified in 1920.
Perfect. Okay, that's what I thought. So Rachel Sussman remembers being, you know, a student in U.S. history class in high school, and she remembers there being about a single paragraph about the women's suffrage movement. And she remembers thinking to herself at that point, I bet there's more to this story.
Oh my gosh, every woman in America thought that. Literally. And I remember having that thought and going, do I put my hand up and ask my male teacher if he could please like elaborate on what happened there? And, you know, gosh, I even forget what his name is. I know, I can see this whole thing happen. Mr. Neville at, you know, in California. And I remember thinking, should I put my hand up, or do I want to get mocked? Was really the question. I'm like, do I want to get laughed at here? Right. Because he's going to say, I don't know.
Yeah, right. What do I know? What do I know? Exactly. So she remembers thinking there's got to be more to this story. So of course she sets out to kind of, I don't know that it happens immediately, but that moment sticks with her where she's very curious about this women's suffrage movement, which had gone on for years. I mean, decades before we ever get the right to vote by way of the 19th Amendment, which was ratified in 1920. And so she finds this book, Jailed for Freedom by Doris Stevens, who was one of the suffragists. She reads it, and she's familiar enough with Taub's work that she thinks, I think she could be the right person to take this project on. And so she reaches out to her and asks Taub to read the book. Again, Taub is 25 years old at this point, and the book is the account of the White House picket protests of 1917. Tracey, I will admit to you, I have never heard of that until I was researching for this podcast episode, right? That is something that's completely foreign to me.
Well, and the only reason I know about it is because I saw Iron-Jawed Angels, the movie.
Okay, I don't know that either.
Oh, gosh. Early. I don't know. Probably 20 years ago.
Okay.
And it's been around. I mean, it's a good movie, but it does kind of give you the history of the suffrage movement. But it is all about the picket protest and being force-fed in jail. And
so was this when was this the March on Washington where they all wore white?
No.
Or was that something different? Okay.
I think that's different. This was the picketing that got them thrown in jail, and then they went on a hunger strike.
Gotcha.
So Iron-Jawed Angels is all about the kind of the iron implements they use to hold their throats open to.
Oh my gosh!
To basically
force feed them,
raw eggs down their throats
gosh.
Because they were. The president couldn't let people die, couldn't let the suffragists die in jail. That would be really bad publicity.
Or maybe just let them vote.
Yeah, I know. Iron-Jawed Angels. And it took me, I was like, everybody's like, you really have to see this show. And I remember this movie, and I was like, that sounds like an awful movie. Like, what is that about? And then it was like, oh.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
Oh, golly. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
And again, this is the point. This is the point that that they're trying to make is like, I'm an almost 50-year-old woman who has an education and who has voted in every election I've been eligible to since I was 18 years old. And I knew none of this stuff. Absolutely none of it. And in fact, Taub.
The movie came out in 2004.
Okay. I'll have to look for it. I've never heard of it.
It's all about kind of Alice Paul.
Okay, so Alice Paul is the character that Taub plays in Suffs.
Yeah, and that's played by Hilary Swank.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Frances O'Connor, Julia Ormond is Inez Milholland.
That's
Angelica
a big cast.
Houston is Carrie Chapman Carr.
Okay, that's Jen Colella in the
exactly.
original Broadway company.
Yeah, real big names.
Huge names.
Again, there's gonna be a pattern here. 2004 did not do well, was not. I don't remember seeing it being marketed really. It was kind of like this is gonna flop. This is and this is kind of a big budget movie.
Well, like Angelica Houston, isn't she an Academy Award winner? Hilary Swank was an Academy Award winner. Yes. Julia Ormond was very popular then. That was when Chocolat came out with Johnny Depp. I mean, so these are big names at a big moment in each of their careers. So I'm shocked I've never heard of this.
It is really. It premiered 2004 Sundance Film Festival. HBO distributed it. Like, I don't even think it ever got to. I think it went direct to.
Wow.
Like, it didn't even get.
Wonder what the budget on that was. I mean, to go direct to DVD.
It must have been like. They must have lost tons of money. But there's a pattern that's being established here that this portion of our history is not one that people wish to explore.
Yeah.
And there's it is very interesting because I think there are lots of women in America that was like, oh yeah, like, yeah, what? How did that come about?
Right.
Was it just like some guy's idea one day, or like they don't really realize that there was a massive movement?
Massive. And it went for years. And in fact, that's the, a big part of the story of Suffs is how you have this kind of the difference between the generations of how they're going to take up the fight. And that's represented in Jen Colella's character. Is it Katie Chapman
Carr.
Okay. Whatever that character's name is, I've got it written down somewhere and I'm forgetting it. But she was a very prominent woman in the suffrage movement, and I didn't know her name either until this project. And then Alice Paul, the role that Shayna Taub plays, and how they want to pursue it differently, and how messy, even within these movements where you have the same end goal, right? Suffrage was the goal for all of these women, and yet they wanted to achieve it in different means. And it's very interesting how many, how differently they each saw things. And that comes out in the story of Suffs. But, Taub was just like us. And she was very quick to admit that when Sussman gave her the book. She's like, I'm ashamed to say I know nothing about any of this stuff. And I would hold my hand up and say, I'm right there with you, Shayna Taub, because I know even less and I'm a lot older than you. So Taub reads it, like I said earlier, she gets through it in about a single night and finishes in the middle of the night, immediately emails Sussman and says, yes, we've got to do this. She was shocked, as she put it, that she'd made it through the U.S. public school system without knowing any of this information. I mean, she was blown away. She immediately takes on the project, and they work on it as they can for the next 2 years. Now, remember that Taub is performing at this point as well, and doing other projects. So if it's a little slow to get off the ground, initially that was the reason why. She had a lot of demands on her time. But by 2016, they bring on director Lee Silverman, and they both agree immediately that she's the right fit for the job. She directed a couple of things on Broadway. Most notable, though, was the 2014 production of Violet with Sutton Foster,
which
for which she was nominated for a Tony.
To direct.
Yeah, it is.
Like, you have to have the right person in that. Yeah, that's one's a challenge.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I love that show, but it is a tough one. So Lee Silverman had been actually associated with Sutton Foster for a number of projects that they had worked on together, but the highest profile would be that Violet production on Broadway, which I think was the first time Violet was actually on Broadway, because it premiered off like 98, 97, something like that. And like I said, Silverman was nominated for a Tony for that production of Violet for her direction. She doesn't win, but she's nominated. And so then the three of them set out to work, and they're, hammering out what story we're going to tell. Like I said, it was not a tit for tat telling of Doris Stevens's book, but that was the launching pad that led them to dig into things. And as Taub has talked about her development of this show, she's talked about how, with a show like Hamilton, an audience goes in with at least a cursory understanding of who the players are in this story, right?
Yeah.
Like, you go into Hamilton and I automatically
recognize these names.
Right? Thomas Jefferson, I got that one. George Washington, even Alexander Hamilton, we may not have known all that he did, but we knew he had a duel with Aaron Burr, right?
Yeah.
We all knew
Mostly because of a commercial where, I won't go through it again. If you've been listening for a while, you'll know what I mean. Look on our social media.
Indeed,
you can look it
indeed. But she talked about how the fact that people didn't know these stories really gave her some freedom to take a lot of liberties with the characters. And she talked about wanting to privilege humanity over history. So the storytelling was more important to her than getting the exact moments right, because first of all, how could she have known the exact moments, right? She wasn't there. They weren't written down because they weren't important enough to be taught in high schools. So nobody's writing down this kind of history for her to reference it to any great extent. And so she decides that she's just going to focus on storytelling, and she appreciated the fact that she had so much latitude just because of the virtue of the fact that people are so unfamiliar with these stories. So she writes...
It does get her into trouble.
Okay, and we'll talk about that.
We will.
Do you want to unpack that now or later?
Well, just to say, humanity over history was a decision.
Right.
Because once people see it, even if they don't know it at the outset, somebody's going to go look this stuff up.
Right.
And if they do and they find out you have maybe made a character a little nicer than they should be or kind of glossed over something, it can come back and bite you a little bit. Even if you then try to address it later, I think, I think it's a natural inclination to be like, this is a person who got something done. I don't need to like expose every horrible thing that like about them. And I mean, if I was being written into a musical, I would hope people would leave maybe some of my more unsavory characteristics out of it, or and it's like you get that, but you have to know that is your decision, and that there are some people who are not going to be supportive of said decision. So it gets her into a little bit of trouble when the show actually gets up and running, especially because of she's playing Alice Paul, and Alice Paul came down, had a lot of internalized racism. If you look at the letters and that kind of stuff, and that does not come out in the play. Right. She really tries to make it look like people are working with, even though she's trying to, acknowledge that there was struggles there. Yeah. But it's hard. Like, how do you take your main character, the person that pushes this all the way, and make her so flawed that people will not will like
cheer for her,
or there will be no empathy. I'm all for flawed characters, and I think everybody would say flawed characters are a good thing, but there are some flaws that we do not overlook. Mm-hmm. And it's hard, it would be really hard to put a lot of characters on stage as they actually were, because they are from a different time. Mm-hmm. We have to, that's why she's saying humanity over history. And in many ways it's a good strategy, but you just need to know what could...
There's some glossing over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't mean to imply that she was not well researched, because like I said earlier, she had thoroughly, she had read everything that she could find on the subject, but she did give herself lots of latitude. And the explanation was, people don't know who these people are anyway. So in a lot of ways, she was able to treat it as if it were a fictional story, or fictional characters at the very least, because we're so unfamiliar with it. Lin-Manuel Miranda could not have gotten away with that, in Hamilton, because he did take some liberties, but not so many that we were uncomfortable with the changes, right? It still rang true to our understanding of the founding fathers, even if it flipped the script as much as it did, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So in 2018, they have their first readings of Suffs at the public, and they continue to write. And in 2019, it's understood, the expectation is that they'll open at the public in September of 2020, which is just after the centennial of the ratification of the 20th Amendment.
That is so awesome. Like, wouldn't that have been lovely?
It would have been awesome. It would have been awesome, Tracy, but don't you know it?
But I mean,
don't you know it?
Like, there was a lot of people's, like, that was supposed to be, I mean, I remember lots of people kind of lamenting the fact that we couldn't really do anything and celebrate that because we were all stuck in our houses.
That's right. That's right. So, of course, COVID was the big boogeyman that pushed that back. But it was also by way of something else that happened in 2020 that Taub realizes she's got to reckon with some themes in the show as it had been previously written. And you're alluding to some of those earlier, but the George Floyd protest helped her to realize that there were some themes she needed to tackle, that there was more work that she needed to do in terms of racial reckoning in the script. And as you pointed out, some would argue there's still more work to be done, but that was a wake-up call to her that she really had some blind spots and they needed to get them in better shape before they premiered.
You do a historical show and you're never going to be universally loved.
Right, right.
It is very, very difficult to dramatize actual humanity.
Yeah.
Like what actually happened, who these people actually were, and make something that people will root for because we are human. Yeah. So you have to take liberties. You have to take some stuff out. So
yeah. Yeah, so though it gets pushed back from the anticipated opening at the public in September of 2020, by spring of 2022, the show opens at the Public Theater, and there is excitement about the show from some, and from others.
Yeah. Is this the same thing? I pulled up the thing from Iron John to Angels, and it was like, response, and it gives like 2 quotes, and they're like, this is kind of what it got. And it was like, it was okay. And then it was like, this is disastrous. Like, why did someone waste my time with this sentimental nonsense?
Oh, yeah.
And that is it's kind of what they get. Like, that, it's clunky.
It's clunky.
There's issues, but I never thought I'd see like a comparison with Hamilton to be a negative in any way, shape, or form. But there was a lot of comparing it to Hamilton.
Well, and it's even hard not to. They both came out of the public, right? There are moments when the music sounds very similar to Hamilton to me, right? But yeah, the reviews were it's clunky, it's heavy-handed. It doesn't know. I think what it boiled down to was it doesn't know what it is. It's trying to be a show about history with a modern sensibility, right? And so it didn't understand even its own point of view, maybe. One reviewer said it was a jumble of earnestness and sarcasm. Its impact is compromised by overreach. It was heavy-handed.
Yeah.
Too much of a good thing, you might say, right? But it did get the attention of a lot of people, including former Secretary of State, former Senator, former First Lady, Hillary Rodham Clinton, who comes to see the show, notably, and afterwards speaks to the company about her experience. And not long after that, a couple of things happened. Number one, Taub took the advice and the feedback that she had gotten from the reviews, and she did a massive overhaul of the script. The other thing that happened was Taub sent a letter to Secretary Clinton and asked her if she would consider coming on board as a producer. And to her surprise and delight, Senator Clinton said yes. Yeah. And so she did sign on as a producer of the Broadway version of the show, which premiered in 2024. Now, between that 2022 at the public and 2024 on Broadway, there were other workshops. Again, she was constantly trying to rework, to fix the things that had not worked. And it was clear to all involved that they didn't work at the public. And she was trying to fix those things, so they were getting them up on their feet in workshops. And that's the benefit of the nonprofit model, right? Is that you can do that kind of thing and see it on its feet, which is a very different experience from reading something or writing it. So she was able to get it up on its feet, and then in Women's History Month, so March of 2024, the $19 million production premiered at the Music Box Theater. It opened officially, preview started in Women's History Month. It opened officially April 18th at the Music Box. Again, as I mentioned, it had Jen Colella as Carrie Chapman Catt and Shayna Taub as Alice Paul. So those are the two kind of competing ideologies between what are we going to do and why are we going to do it? Kind of Jen Colella's character, Carrie Chapman Catt, representing the old guard, and Shayna Taub as Alice Paul, representing the new guard. And the reviews were...
Again...
They were the New York Times said that the show was much improved, and that's quoting from the New York Times, comparing it to the 2022 production at the Public. But they also talked about those, stiff polemics, they called them, and they said they are not compelling, right? So some of the same types of frustrations, and I would love to hear your thoughts. So what are they?
The more and more I read reviews and things, it's like you can kind of tell when reviewers are taking a childish prejudice against something. It's just like, this really doesn't have anything to do with what you saw. You went in there with some baggage, my friend, and you came out with even more. Honestly, it's I see this. There seems to be a split. It's just that the most harrowing reviews that it gets, the ones that are that condemn it from being too didactic, are all from men. Mm-hmm. Now, there are lots of female reviews of it, and a lot of it, they're not glowing necessarily, but I feel like it gives it a little bit more of a chance, and it doesn't say things like, it's just too preachy, and it's like, wait a minute, hold on. Now, there are some places that do, like the Smithsonian ran something on it, and that historian's like, I don't go to the theater to be preached at, I go to the theater to be entertained. And I'm like, did you really not find this entertaining?
Right.
Or was it because you had no connection with the history that you felt like you were more at a lecture than you were at an entertaining moment? Because, I knew all of this. And so when I started listening to it, I was like, I don't see that it's very preachy. Mm-hmm. I'm trying, it's about as preachy as our friend Hammerstein gets in You've Got to Be Carefully Taught. Mm-hmm. He might have been even more preachy with that one. Why is this different? And I think that was my... I don't know. It just was kind of like, huh? I just don't see the same thing in it. Not because I love the musical, but because I enjoy it. I just don't. This is one of those ones where you're like, the reviews are sometimes unnecessarily harsh.
Yeah, I'm like, just too much.
Why?
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, if you really felt like you were being taught the whole time, then maybe we need to talk about the fact that you were not educated on this to begin with.
Right.
Maybe
which is a systemic failure of its own, right? That is let's talk about that.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I saw, the other thing I do sometimes is kind of cull through some of the Reddit threads, because I just love I love seeing what people who have seen the show, their gut reactions. And especially when they don't have to reveal their name. Right. And I saw one on, this wasn't Reddit, but it was like a show Reddit kind of thing. And it basically said, don't see this if you don't like how direct and rudimentary the feminist message in Barbie were. And I went, you know what? We've hit a nail on the head here, because remember the backlash against Barbie the musical? Did you see Barbie?
No, but I read all about it.
I know, we read all about it. I did see it. And I remember being like, this is what everybody's so upset about. Like,
it's always that way. It's always that way.
I was like, okay, I am not having the visceral reaction that other people are. But it's the same kind of reaction to it. It's this visceral reaction to something that you just kind of go, guys, it's really, really hard to not say that this is a problem because it is feminist in nature. That if you keep reacting like this,
like exactly,
and that's not just men doing this. Like women are reacting like this too. And I'm like, it's very, very difficult to take criticism seriously when you have this huge body of people who are just like, it's too preachy. I don't like the message, and I'm like, okay, you can say that, but let's look at the rest of it.
What's not to like about the message?
Well, yes, I'm with you. However,
who's arguing about that? I don't understand.
I don't know either. But
oh my gosh.
I didn't find the messages in Barbie that horrifying either. I was like, wait, there's still a question about this? Oh dear.
Right.
I'm sorry. I thought having the vote was with. I'm going to fight for that vote. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue to fight for that vote because apparently there's some people who think I shouldn't have it. And I'm like, this is what I'm learning from this musical.
This is a bigger problem than I thought.
This is a bigger problem than I thought there was going to. I was just like, holy moly. So, yeah, yes, it was hard. It's hard to watch because I'm like, are we giving this a fair shake? Do I think it's a perfect musical? No. Like there has been rewrite after rewrite after rewrite, and I think that probably some kind of missteps with that humanity over history thing probably got made along the way. But you know what? Like there's some real good in here, and I do hope that I can take my kiddos to this someday because there's not anything else that's going to teach them about this era. And I can be a good parent and fill in the details of where we're perhaps glossing over the history, but I do that anyway. So
sure.
I mean, I know you do that with your boys too. So like, I think that.
Well, it's the kind of show that I would love for my boys to see, right?
Why, it's like we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
No. It's the kind of show that I would, as I learned about, I haven't seen it, but I would love for my boys to see it because we could have great conversations about the fact that, believe it or not so long ago, just over 100 years ago, women weren't allowed to vote. I mean, they have gone to vote with me every time I've voted since they've been born. So they certainly understand.
I mean, I take my 1-year-olds, they're 2 now, but I take them every time. Like,
absolutely. So I would love for them to see it and to, have their eyes open to this. I'm sure it'll come near me in North Carolina soon. And when it does, I'll be sure that they see it because I think it is an important story. Even if it's not perfectly told, it's still a conversation worth having. And that's why we create theater, right?
Yeah. To
have conversations.
And I think it's fine to, call creators out for, in this particular case, whitewashing history or looking at history and leaving some of the more unsavory bits of character out. Like, I think we can say that to people. I think we can do that. We can also, I think this kind of all or nothing approach to things.
Yeah.
And that's one of the, I think that's one of the messages of the show. Like an all or nothing, approach to something will always fail. Like,
and that absolutely, that's what I was alluding to when I was talking about the different generations wanting to handle this movement differently. And Shana Taub has talked about the fact that movements are messes because there's so many people, and yes, they may have a common end or a common goal, a common end game, but they have different methodologies in order to achieve that. And you've got to find a way that you can make the most of it because they're coming at things differently.
Because it's like, it's all, so one of the big things that happens during the run of Suffs is in the summer. So it opens in April, right?
Yes, April 18th. Yep.
April 18th. In the summer, there's a group that calls itself CancelSuffs.com that at the very, like in the first act, there's like they bring out a banner that says cancel Suffs.
During the performance?
And so then they were removed and everything, but like they came back several times. They finally did like try to get it out there, but it's because of a lot of the whitewashing of the show, and they were frustrated with how with how the African American characters were portrayed, and they were frustrated with how Alice Paul was portrayed, and they were like, "This is you are rewriting history."
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if she did X, Y, and Z. You can't pull this apart,
right? And forget the fact that she also did ABC.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it's and at the very beginning of the musical, there's a conversation about African American women marching in their very initial first march through Washington, where they have to have a conversation about allowing the African American women to march with their states and their delegates. And they go back and forth, and they come to it that the African American women, and this is part of it's in the song, they ask them to march behind, because if they don't, they're going to lose the money from the Southern white women. That's and right. They are the ones that are bankrolling a good portion of it, and so they so that is what they asked them to do. In the show, it is kind of portrayed as a measured, we don't have any options here. Like, how do we do this? And we've said we'll accept everybody. We want to accept everyone. Our hearts are open to them, but we're being manhandled because we can't afford the security or the fee if we don't do this. And what outweighs another one? They're having that kind of conversation. And that is not a conversation that actually probably happened.
Right.
It was probably history shows us that it was very much, no, the African Americans can, yes, be with us, but they have to come behind.
Yeah.
History is hard, y'all.
It's hard.
It is so
I understand
hard. It's
the
hard
frustration.
to teach.
Yeah.
Because of these issues where it's like trying to embed it into people that everyone is morally wrong.
Right.
Everyone, if you look at the history of everybody's life, they're even the greatest people in the world, the most principled, are going to have these huge missteps, because that is who we are. Mm-hmm. We are human beings. We are flawed, and trying to give people empathy for, why did those people just sit there during the Holocaust? Why didn't they do this? Trying to build empathy for people's inaction, or trying to build empathy for folks that did what they thought was the next best step, but didn't have the forethought to realize, no, we need to burn the system down, actually. Right. And history is very difficult because we are flawed. And the more and more we look back on our history, and, we need to have those conversations. We need to be frustrated about the conversations. Yeah. I'm 100% for that. But we do, I think, sometimes have to, we have to have these cultural products to do that. Otherwise, it just stays in the history books, and we don't get anything about it. I would much rather it be flawed and they go learning something. I said this to my students this week. I was just like, I would much rather have a lecture that's flawed and you not love something I say in it, because it's going to kind of make you go do your own research.
That's right.
And come back at me, and I want that. Please.
Yes.
Challenge me. Like, by all means, do that.
Well, it just, in that way, it becomes the launching pad for the audience member that Doris Stevens book was for Shayna Top, right? Where it's like, I read this and now I need to know more.
And there's a generation of young women now that are doing that.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
And it's like, and are seeing things like cancelsuffs.com and reading through that as well. And so they're able to get a much wider picture. But without this, we'd still all be sitting in the dark.
A paragraph in a U.S. history book.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I think we need to be clear about, problems. We need to bring them up and everything, but we all need to get a lot less touchy.
I agree.
Because the more, we need to be able to say these things out loud and not feel like we're being personally attacked. We need to say them. We need to be able to say, let's relook at that from a new lens.
Right.
Because it's rough out there, because what we will end up doing, what will end up happening is erasure. Yeah. Because people will not talk about any of this
They're
stuff.
afraid to say anything.
And it makes it's wrong.
Yeah.
We need we need to make sure that everybody is talking about it, and that's what I want. I want to make sure none of it gets erased. Yeah. We were talking about minstrelsy this week in class.
Oh, that's a hard one too. Yeah.
It's very, very hard. But, and a lot of the character names that are built, that are stereotypes that are built during
stock characters. Yeah.
These stock characters that are still in, still in musicals today, had names and monikers that are looked at as slurs today, and would not hear in any sort of conversation ever. But we have to kind of put them up there and be like, this is where that comes from. This is why this is a slur. This is what, and it's really, it's rough. Mm-hmm. It's rough, and it's making sure everybody knows that it's like, this is the reality of this.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that everybody, when we get a show like this, everybody gets a voice. And the same thing happened with Hamilton. I think we've just forgotten about it. But it's like, we're going on, we have an African-American, George Washington, and let's just talk about the slaves on his plantation, shall we? Let's talk about their lives. Let's talk about what this looks like. And, we just don't address it in that. But, I will tell you, I paid a whole lot more attention at Mount Vernon when, after Hamilton.
Sure.
I learned a whole lot more, and I spent a whole lot more time in outside the slave cemetery than I did looking at George Washington's burial site, because I was like, there's something big here. Anyway, I'm not trying to get all preachy like the show. I do not wish to be. I do not wish, I don't know. I think that's why this is hard.
It's complicated. It absolutely is.
Because we don't, I'm not trying to be preachy. I'm just being like, this, just yelling at something because it's too preachy that's not helpful.
No. And we all have to be able to say, you're right. If we're all yelling at each other for creating something that isn't exactly like we would have created it ourselves, then nobody's going to be brave enough to say anything at all. Mm-hmm. Because we're going to want to avoid the yelling. Not nobody. Some people will still stand up. I would not. I would go like a turtle into a shell and be like, I'm just not going to say anything, So I totally understand that. But I appreciate this show, though I've not seen it, but I appreciate what I learned just through the process of researching for this podcast episode. I appreciate the opportunity that this show will give me when I take my sons to see it and we get to have conversations about the stories in the show. And
it's got great music.
Yeah.
We just got really kind of, we got really didactic here. I get that. But
to be expected. For a couple of professors.
You're like, I love the music. The music, we got some good construction in here. We've got some good songs. We've got some really good ideas in it. I enjoyed it. Most definitely. It wasn't like I was thinking the whole time and that ruined my experience. I enjoyed it for what it was.
Right.
So it's just that it's like when it is something like this, it's the same thing with Hamilton. I enjoy Hamilton. I'm going to pick it apart later. I'm going to pick apart every little bit. That's what my brain does. So like if you're listening to this, if you've actually listened through the didactic part, seriously, go and have a wonderful time because you're going to enjoy it if you give it a chance. Yeah. And if you know what's coming. Like, if you can just get to the point where it's like, look, I'm gonna feel really silly because I don't know anything about this. And I'm going to have to learn something. But, you know what? I can enjoy myself while I do it.
That's right. I'll be better off.
This is one of the best history lessons I've ever,
Yeah,
than
for
I've
sure.
ever seen. So.
Well, the show won 2 Tonys, but just before we sign off for the day, the show won 2 Tony Awards for book and score for
her.
Shana Taub. Yeah,
for
Shana
her.
Taub
She
won
won
both.
2 Tony Awards in the same night, y'all. It's good.
That's right. And she lost Best Musical to another Bookish musical, The Outsiders, which we've talked about recently.
Everybody went, what?
Exactly. So it nevertheless won 2 Tony Awards. It closed January 5th, 2025 after 301 performances. And then, of course, it is coming now, soon, to a theater near you. Anything else you want to add?
Go see it.
Yeah.
Take your kids.
I think so too.
They need to know this history too.
That's right.
And it's a good way to introduce them to it. And I thank her for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, everybody. That'll do it for this episode of the Dr. Broadway podcast. Tune in next time when we'll be talking about Wicked.
Oh my goodness.
We've been waiting for this one. It opened on Broadway in 2003. And the second and final film installment opens in cinemas on November 21st, just 2 days after our episode should air. So, of course, Wicked is based on the 1995 book of the same name by Gregory Maguire.
Which, don't read the book and think it's the same, y'all.
It is not the same.
We'll talk about that next week.
Indeed, it is not at all the same. I made that mistake not long after the musical premiered. And I was like, wait a minute.
What am I reading? What did I just read?
Exactly. So tune in next week to hear all about Wicked. And until then, connect with us via email at hello@drbroadway.com or on Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok and at Dr. Bway Podcast.